Hi class. Module 5 is going to talk about personalities and values, and it's chapter 5. And this is really an important part of organizational behavior. So I want to take a few minutes to kind of go over what the chapter is about to give you an overview and some of the stuff that I would want to cover this week. The important part of chapter 5 excuse me, is that it deals primarily with personalities and values which are major components of shaping our behavior. In order for managers to predict behavior, they got to know the personalities of those who work for them. So the chapter kind of starts out with a review of the research on personality and its relationship to behavior, and ends by describing how values shape many of our work-related behaviors. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to kind of think about describing personality and how you might be able to measure that personality. Look at PowerPoint 5.3. It basically describes, and I'm sure you've all heard of this, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. That's the personality framework, and it displays the Big Five, what they call the Big Five model, describing strengths and weaknesses, something similar to a SWOT. And we identified the 3 traits of the dark triad. What does that mean? Contrasting ideas of the approach/avoidance framework. We also want to discuss how the concepts of self-core evaluation, CSE, self-monitoring, and proactive personality contribute to the understanding of personality. And how does the situation affect, when it's presented, whether personality predicts behavior? So you want to contrast what we refer to as terminal and instrumental values and describe the differences between a person-job fit and a person-organization fit. They're not the same thing. And then finally, we want to identify Hofstede's 5 value dimensions of national culture. So you take a look at PowerPoint 5-3, 5-4 will basically tell you what is personality. How do you define it? How do you measure it? Look at PowerPoint 5-6. And that is going to give you some of the personality determinants. For example, heredity, twin studies, aging and personality, personality traits. Then it's going to go, if you look at PowerPoint 5.7, into the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. Myers-Briggs is probably the most used instrument in the world when it comes to assessing behavior and personality. For example, it talks about, and I'm sure you've heard of this, your extroverts versus your introverts. That's ERI. Sensing versus intuitive, SRN. Thinking versus feeling, TRF. And judging versus perceiving, JRP. And then there's 16 personality types based off of Briggs. And you can look at PowerPoints 5.7, 5.8. 5.8 goes into the personality types. It describes conscientiousness, emotional stability. What is emotional stability? Openness to experience. Look at Exhibit 5.1 in your book in PowerPoint 5.9. It talks about the big 5 traits that predict behavior at work. What else? PowerPoint 510 is the 5 traits and what they call the big 5 traits that have the most verifiable linkages to important organizational outcomes. Just like in your studies, every learning lesson has an outcome. Same with this. Every personality trait that's studied has a desired outcome. What is that outcome? So that's PowerPoint 510, and you can read about the dark triad. You know, what's narcissism, what's psychopathy, and so forth. There's a lot of psychology in here. 511 talks about approach versus avoidance, and 512 talks about other personality traits relative to OB. 513 talks about personalities and situations, and 514 talks about situational strength theory, or situation strength theory. Can't talk. And then there's trait activation theory. That's Exhibit 5.2, PowerPoint 515. It's called TAT. And it predicts that some events or interventions activate a trait on some more than others. Then we're talking about values, 516 and 517, and the importance of having good values. 518 talks about terminal versus instrumental values. 519 is Holland's personality job fit. You want to read about that. Look at 519, 520, exhibits 5.3 and 5.4. And when you look at the person-organization fit, study PowerPoint 521. Now, there's also, it isn't just us. Domestically, there are international values. Look at PowerPoints 522 and 523. Because values differ across cultures, an understanding of the differences would be helpful in explaining and predicting behavior. So it isn't just us here. PowerPoint 524 and Exhibit 5-5 go into power distance. And that's important. That relates to Hofstede's theory. Look at that. Exhibit 5.5. Power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, high avoidance or uncertainty avoidance, long-term versus short-term orientation. Look at PowerPoint 525, and it goes into global leadership as it relates to Hofstede and having an organizational framework that works to go along with that. And 526 is summary and implications for managers. So that's it. That's the reading. And when you look at PowerPoint 527 and 528, if you want to, not mandatory, keep in mind personality, the 5 big personality traits, and also values. That's it. Now I'll send you some really nice PowerPoints to go along with the lecture for Thursday. And we're going to have a great workshop. Wait to see.